Hello, DBI, and welcome. This is another roleplay review. This time for Seru Hypo's log. How would I look like? And if you guys are wondering why things look and sound a little different, I am recording this from my bedroom since the studio is kind of preoccupied right now. But this is what I would probably say is the log that I have been waiting for from Hypo for a very long time. I'm sure Eichenbond probably feels the same way, and in a way, I feel like the way that Seru wrote this was to appease the both of us because we've been having some pretty specific notes for Hypo, and they kind of hit all of these points. And while it makes me good to see that our suggestions for certain character development are being taken, I won't say with a grain of salt, but they're seen as aids to help the character and not us just putting the character down. Sarah, if you did write this just to appease us, I would say please don't, right? Write your character in a way that you want to write them, but I will say it makes me happy to see these changes in Hypo, and it's kind of why I decided to record this video off my laptop with holding my Blue Yeti mic in my hand rather than just do a typed up response, because it just made me happy and I really enjoyed reading this today. But enough about me. The kind of the synopsis of this is that Hypo wakes up after his fight with Nova, after his fight with Monoko, and the destruction of the rebellion, really. And I want to say this is the before the beginning of Canvas, or right after. But he's been named the leader of the rebellion. But so much is going on that not a lot of people even come to visit him while he's been in the infirmary, and really it's just Arcturus who has been there and has kind of been talking to him and kind of giving him lessons, kind of preparing him for his role as leader. And it's just one of those days where it just goes in one ear and out the other. He's not really paying attention. He's not all with it because something is just really wearing him down. And when we kind of get into it, he goes through, Hypo's kind of going through a character crisis, really, a personal character crisis of who am I, which is why this title is so fitting. If you were to paint me onto a canvas, how would I look like? And reading this, and I don't want to talk about my own character, but when he mentions Zulker and mentions that he was a loyalist to the core, and it's finally right, almost a year, maybe longer than a year since their fight, it's Zulker's words finally got to Hypo. And the whole reason that I made that character was just to be Hypo's antithesis, right? If you guys are going to rebel against the Empire, well, there's going to be people who are strictly loyal to the Empire. They love the Empire. They love their way of life that it is right now. And, I know that between Ike and I, we've talked about the Empire needs to be a little bit more evil to help this rebellion arc go along. But I personally have always believed that it can't be this Frieza tyrannical evil, because it would never work. Right? And that's always been kind of my stance on the Empire. Sure, they can do some pretty dastardly things, but to just be outright tyrannical, iron fist, it just wouldn't work. There would be more rebellions. So yeah, there would not be people who were loyal to it unless they were also just, bullshit, batshit crazy. And that's why I kind of wanted Zulker to be that kind of even keel, yes, I'm a very bad person, and yeah, he is kind of that bad guy, but you guys see what I'm saying. What he said to Hypo finally got through. And Hypo is finally stopping to realize, like, there are two sides of every coin. There's good and there's evil, which, like, they very often blur those lines together. So he kind of is, again, having this character crisis, kind of thinking, like, when I first got here, the rebellion wanted me here, but did they want me here because I was just a good, obedient soldier, because I had the potential to be Zantetsu, because, I could fight for them? Or did they really want me here because they like me as a person? And then he even goes on even further of, like, when I stopped them with these food rations, who was it going for? Was it going to other people, other places to help feed their poor? Or was it just for the rich? Like, if I had done one thing, I'm a hero. If I had done another, I'm a villain. And Hypo's really just kind of going through and seeing, like, maybe all of the things that I have been doing have not been as heroic as I wanted them to be, because I want to be a hero, right? And in writing, every good villain believes that they are the hero in their own story. And at some point, before they flip, they should have this kind of question for themselves, right? And I'm not saying Hypo is going to become a villain, but I'm just saying that if he recognizes this now, then he is making progression as a character, to where not everything he does is perfect. Not everything he pursues is always in the right frame of mind. Sometimes, while he says he's doing the right thing for all the right people, he's really just serving himself. And, to what end is that going to stop? Like, he even says, like, there's a part of me that wants to sit on the throne rather than destroy it. And that's a poison, and it's eating away at me. So I loved it. I mean, that's what I loved to see, is that there's impact on Hypo now. That people are saying things that are getting him to kind of, like, think about what he's doing, and to change his mind, and to be a little bit more cognizant and aware of his actions, and the things that will come from what he is doing. And I personally believe that is the making of a great leader, right? If he really wants to lead these people, he needs to have that mindset. Because before, it seemed like, I want to be leader because, being king is cool and I get to do whatever I want, and everybody is like, oh, look at me, right? That's kind of how it felt before. I'm not going to lie. It was just kind of like, this is what I want, and I want to be cool. I want to be the protag. I want to show up at the last second and save my friends, and everybody be like, yeah, Hypo's here. And he mentions that even. He even mentions his heroic moment, and how, Ariel really had the heroic moment during that fight. And he failed to be so. Like, she was the one that protected everybody. She was the one that overcame her fears and was looking out for the well-being of others, where Hypo is very self-aware that he was, kind of being selfish. And again, he wanted to be the hero. He wanted that spotlight, that limelight. And he finally tells us why. It's because he didn't want to be alone, And if for you guys who know the story of Hypo, or if you don't, like, he was a Syrian caveman. And he says how he thought he was going to live on these unspiced meats and see starships flying overhead, but nobody was ever going to interact with him because he was just a Syrian caveman. He didn't even know language. So he thought he was going to die alone. And when he had this found/adopted family, yeah, he wanted their love. He wanted their attention. He wanted family, and he wanted to be somebody important. And the fact that he realized how strong that desire was changing him is a good thing. And then at the end, he kind of realizes that, well, he can't completely ignore his own wants, but he can do better. And, him failing to make his climb on the tower made him a better person. He wasn't ready. He wasn't meant to, at that moment, succeed. He almost knows, like, man, if I had that victory, if I had climbed that tower, that version of Hypo would not have been the better version. This might have been. I'm gonna speculate and say that had Hypo finished the tower climb, gotten Korn's training, would that have been the start of Cyberverse Tier 7, Emperor Hypo? Would he have had that final victory and just thought, like, I am absolute and I am meant to be on this path, I am chosen, But he doesn't. He fails. And so that version of Hypo died and another one was forged. And honestly, that's like the best. That's the best training that I could have come up with it for him. Is just being like, hey, like let's put your ego in the back pocket and let's see why you're doing this. And he did, and it was great. It was great. It was self-realization. It was overcoming lots of conflict that I feel like the character even was realizing that they were putting off. And I hope that going forward, we see this new Hypo. And actually, there's a log between Hypo and I, ironically, where I felt there was a change in him. Definitely, there was definitely kind of like this different type of character that my character was interacting with. So I loved it. I thought that this little like 5-minute read was so deep because he kept it consistent. And like if this were a book or a story, we're like halfway or maybe 2/3 through it, and then the main character has this revelation that they need to be better, they need to be different, and now they can be. Now the back half is the true heroic moment. Maybe this is just the first half, right? So good job, Hypo. I really enjoyed this log. I really enjoyed reading it. I don't think that like by itself this log will stand up to the test of time. Like, you guys have really got to know this character and have been following him for this year-long journey to get to where he is. But if you do that, this is the big payoff. And this is why like that slow burn, that storytelling that Ike is always talking about is so good, because we've been told this story. We've been watching this almost like villain arc unfold before us while being told it's the hero story. And now it's like we're being rewarded. We're being rewarded with our assumptions by the writer acknowledging what is actually coming across on page. And I loved it. I can't gush about it anymore. I'm not going to take up any of your time. As always, thank you for your time. My name is Riz, and speaking of time, I will see you next time.